Okay, so let's look at our warm-up for Monday and Tuesday. So on Monday it says the thickness of the board students used for a construction project are listed below. These measurements are in inches. So I see there the measurements. Which dot plot represents these measurements? So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put all of these in order. So based on this data, I have 1/8 as my smallest. So I'm going to go ahead and put 1/8 first. Mark that one out. Then I have 1/4. So I have 1/4. So I'm going to write it one time. Then I have 1/2. So I see that I have 1/2 two times. So I'm going to write 1/2. 1/2. Mark those out. Okay. I have 5/8 next, so I'm going to go ahead and write that next, 5/8. And then my next one is 3/4. I see that I have 3/4 three times, so 1, 2, 3. And then I'm going to cross those out. So my last one is 1. So now I'm going to make sure that my numbers on my dot plot match this information, and that will be the correct answer. So let's look at A. So 1/8 is my first space here because there's 8 spaces. Okay, so I see that I have 1 here for 1/8, 1 for 1/4. This one has 2 for 1/2. This one has 1 for 5/8. It has 2 for 3/4, 1 for 7/8, and 1 for 1. Okay, alright, so let's see if that matches my data. So I do see that I have 1 for 1/8, 1 for 1/4. I have 2 1/2, so that's correct. I have 1 5/8, that's correct. For 3/4, I see 2 on my dot plot, but I see 3 3/4 up here. So I know that this is incorrect because this one's wrong. So A is incorrect. Okay, so now let's look at B. So again, this is 1/8. We have 1. We have 1 for 1/4. We have 2 for 1/2. We have 1 for 5/8, 3 for 3/4, and 1 for 7/8. So let's look at our numbers now. So we have 1/8 one time. Okay, that's correct. We have 1/4 one time, so that's correct. We have 1/2 two times, so that's correct. We have 5/8 one time, so that's correct as well. We have 3/4 three times. I don't have 7/8, so this right here in this part makes my dot plot incorrect because I don't have any 7/8 in my data up here. Alright, so let's look at C. So same thing, I'm going to go ahead and label it. This is 1/8. I have 1. I have 1 1/4. I have 2 1/2. I have 1 5/8, 2 3/4, and 1 1. Alright, so for 1/8, again we have 1. Alright, so this is correct so far. For 1/4, we have 1. Okay. For 1/2, we have 2. Okay, so that's correct. For 5/8, we have 1, so that's correct. For 3/4, we see it 3 times up here, so this makes my dot plot incorrect. So that's incorrect. Okay, so that leaves us with D, so let's make sure it's correct. So I'm going to label it. So we have 1/8 here, and so we have 1 for 1/8, 1 for 1/4, 2 for 1/2, 1 for 5/8, 3 for 3/4, and 1 for 1. So let's check out our data. So we have 1 1/8. Okay, so that's correct. We have 1 1/4. That's correct. We have 2 1/2. That's correct. We have 1 5/8. That's correct. We have 3 3/4. That's correct. And we have 1 for 1. So in this case, D is the correct answer. Okay, so now let's look at our next problem. Alright, so the next problem says, the stem and leaf plot shows the number of sit-ups a group of students did in PE. What's the difference between the number of students who did more than 36 sit-ups and the number of students who did fewer than 25 sit-ups? Okay, now one important thing to remember here on this stem and leaf plot is your key. So 6/2 means 62. Okay, so in this case, the first row here would mean 9. Okay, then this one would mean 13, 17, 19, and so forth. Okay, so let's go ahead and answer the question. So the question says, what's the difference between the number of students who did more than 35 sit-ups and the number of students who did fewer than 25 sit-ups? Okay, so let's look at the group that did more than 35. So 35 is going to be in my third row, or 36, sorry, 36 is going to be here, and it needs to be more than 36. So this would include numbers greater than 36, so 37, 40, 45, and so forth. So let's look here. So if I'm looking at this graph here, I can see that 37 is the first number greater than 36. So I'm going to count all of these people here, and it's 1 for each one. So in this case, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So 12 people did more than 36 sit-ups. Okay, now let's look at the next part. It says fewer than 25. So fewer than 25 meaning a number less than 25. So 24, 23, 20. So I need to look at my graph here. I'm looking for 20, so I know it's going to be in my row of 2. And I'm looking for a number less or fewer than 25. So in this case, it starts with 23. So we have 23 all the way to 9. So I'm going to count how many numbers that is. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 6 people did fewer than 25 sit-ups. So now I'm looking for difference. So you remember difference means to subtract. So I'm going to take 12 minus 6. And at this point I could probably do this in my head. So 12 minus 6 is 6. So my answer for this one is 6.